Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. This is episode three of Breaking Down Bad with Adam and Billy. We have a special episode for you tonight, and that's because we're not 2,000 miles apart. We're actually, if you can tell, we're in the same room. There's Billy right there. And before he speaks, I'm going to explain what, because we have technical, being in the same room on Zoom, we have an echo. If he speaks, if he's on mute right now, so that my audio can be heard by you clearly. Now, when it's time for him to speak, I'm going to go on mute so that he can speak. So unfortunately, it's going to be one of those things where it's like, past the potato type thing. So I'm speaking now. He's on mute and he's saying hi, but that's kind of how we're doing it. We're in the room. We were here in Kentucky for an event, and this is our last night in the room. We're taking off. We're going back home tomorrow, and we thought, why not take advantage of this opportunity to record our third episode, Breaking Down Bad. We just watched in the Cats in the River, the Bags in the River. Sorry, Cats in the Bags in the River is episode 3. And we have about 4 to 5 locations for you. Let's go ahead and get started. I'll let Billy take over, but I'll just say the opening of this episode is a flashback. So we get our first flashback, if I remember correctly, and it's Walt and Gretchen, I think, in grad school, and they're clearly kind of like there's a romantic vibe. And they are going over the breakdown of the human body, and they are in a room. There's a whiteboard, and they're breaking down the percentages of the entire human body, including everything, blood and everything. And I'll just say that location is, believe it or not, is in the Albuquerque Balloon Museum. It's on the second floor. I've been there. You got to go upstairs. It's kind of, well, I'll show you pictures without it dressed, and it looks pretty much like it did in the show.
Upstairs in the Balloon Museum. It looks exactly like you'd expect from the flashback scene. Walt and Gretchen. This is like season 1, as he's cleaning up the Emilio's body. So the shot itself intercut with scenes of him with the flashback of going over all the elements that are makeup of the human body. So this is pretty much the shot, the wide shot, and he's standing right at the second pole. And Gretchen's on this end, and they have the little dry erase board or whatever here. And this is on the second floor, the Blue Museum, which actually was off limits, but I asked security if I can escort me here so I can get the proper shot, and he said no problem. The acoustics underneath this dome are like crazy. I feel like I'm mic'd. I don't know if you can pick it up on the camera, but it's really amplified. But anyway, Bryan Cranston would have been standing right in front of this pole, up right here. Wire shot. And then you have the white dry erase or the board that he was writing on here. Gretchen here. And this view, I mean, this is why they chose the location right here. All that land. And of course the beautiful Sandias, the backdrop. Yeah, there's not much else to it. There's an identical room just right downstairs on the first floor. I actually thought that was it Everything lined up. The only difference was this bar here was not. Actually, it looks like it's a decal that was not on the first floor. So I'm like, okay, they would change that over time, but no, it's just because it's the wrong floor. This looks, nothing has changed since filming, which was, this is season 1, so 13 years ago. So here it is.
That's where they filmed the flashback. We're going to see that again here in a little bit further in the episode, but before we get into it further, I'll let Billy take the mic. I'm going to mute, and we'll keep doing this.
Hey guys, so yeah, episode 3, the bags in the river. This one, there's not a lot going on in this one. It's a lot of Walt and Crazy 8 just kind of trying to figure out. It's a lot of humanizing, I guess, is a good word for it. Walt's really struggling with trying to figure out how to deal with this Crazy 8 situation, and he's like making a list of, you know, the positives and the negatives of you know, his choice if he were to let him go or kill him. And you know, he basically comes to that one conclusion, which is if he lets him go, then he's going to come after him and kill his whole family, which we know that would be the case. So yeah, I mean, I haven't actually rewatched this episode for a while, because like I said, a lot of it is just those two talking in the basement, and Walt's kind of getting to know him a little bit more, which isn't really a good thing, but I don't think he knows what else to do. He's just like trying to buy time to figure out what to do. And yeah, this is the episode with the broken plate. He's this time around, like we saw in the last episode, he makes another sandwich for Crazy 8, but this time he actually cuts the crust off, and that's just another example of him sort of, you know, humanizing in a way.
Correct. So yes, this episode is Walt needs to take care of his part of the coin flip, and that's very difficult for a normal person who has regard for human life and doesn't just take a human life. He had the harder job out of the two. Of course, Jesse's job was not easy, but he had the harder job because he has to kill a living person. And we see his predicament, and in the minute he's trying to get Crazy 8 to give him a reason to not do it. So there is a moment, there's a great interaction between, we get backstory of Crazy 8's life, which we will see more in Better Call Saul, but that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, Crazy 8 has a chance to humanize himself and basically talk himself out of this situation. And we all know how it ends up. But before we continue with that, I mean, that we all know that part of the story, but a couple of new arcs that are introduced is we got this episode is, I wouldn't say focused, but it does have some focus on Walt Jr. And Walt Jr. is being accused. Well, there is I think it's Marie who misunderstands Skyler about the pot, Walt using pot, and thinks that Junior's using pot. So she tells Hank to teach him a lesson, if you will. And so we have another location that comes from that. And Hank takes Junior to the Crossroads. We see the Crossroads Motel for the first time, and it's the Crystal Palace. We see Wendy for the first time. And of course, you know how that scene plays out. The Crossroads is right smack dab in the middle of Albuquerque. off the highway. You can't miss it if you're just driving through.
I thought we were going to Cold Stone Creamery.
And it's seen multiple times through both series. And I mean that is a scene full of comedy, full of humor. The interaction between Hank and Junior. We got Wendy, that, and then the Hank and Wendy's interaction. There's a lot of comedy there.
So why are you telling me this?
We've stayed in the Crossroads, actually, and this is a good opportunity to bring that experience up, because this very episode is what we stayed for. We wanted to stay. Well, I didn't realize we were going to be getting into this early in this. But here we are, episode 3. So yeah, we stayed in the Crossroads, and we actually stayed, believe it or not, in Wendy and Jesse's room. And I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, that is room 211. Am I correct on that? Yeah, 211. We definitely earned it. We made some calls ahead of time to try to secure this room. And long story short, we did, and we stayed there. It's about $40 a night. I think they charged an extra $10 because we asked for that room, and it was just like you would imagine. It smelled like stale cigarettes. The mattress was really firm, and I think we saw a roach in the bathroom. But I don't even know if we stayed one night. So the entire trip, it was just a one-night stay, because for the experience and then to be in the room, and the room looks exactly like it did at the time. And I believe this was 2016, and the episode was shot probably in 2008. So yeah, I mean, we got pictures here, like, sitting right there where Jesse is sitting, and Wendy sits on top of him, and they're both sitting in that same chair, and so that was an experience. The other well, before we get to the next location, I'll let Billy chime in on his thoughts.
The Crossroads was a really strange one. It's like first of all, it's one of the most iconic locations from Breaking Bad, I would say. Very standout. You can't miss it if you ever go to Albuquerque. Certainly in the Breaking Bad vicinity, you will pass Crossroads multiple times. And I remember, God, I was definitely not prepared to discuss this one already, but it is here. So yeah, I remember, what I remember the most about Crossroads in that room specifically was the bathtub. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you remember that. I was terrified of that bath. That bathtub looked like somebody could have died in there. I mean, it was, when you see those movies with like, I don't know, just Fleabag, crack den motels. That's pretty much what that was like. The whole experience was strange. Going to the front desk, and I can't remember that woman's name, but she was she was really interesting. Yeah, so it took some convincing, kind of, if I remember correctly, to get into that room. It's almost like she didn't want to let us stay in there at first, and then like she thought maybe she would get more money out of us because we wanted to stay in that room. I can't remember if there was something about like that, like the rate was this, and I don't know. That's going back. I just remember it being and Adam might remember better on that, but I just remember it being kind of, sketchy all around. But it really did feel, this was another one of those locations that it really felt like you were there. This was not a, it hasn't changed. It's exactly the same as it was when they filmed. So in some ways, that's great for fans. That's what you want when you go visit a filming location, especially in our case, in my case, certainly, 2,000 miles away to visit a filming location. You want it to look like it is in the show. So I'm happy to proclaim that the Crossroads remains untouched by time.
Correct. I do remember making the call a month or two before our trip to plan to try to book this room, the specific room, and she was. I say she because I feel like I talked to the same person every time. Could have been different people, but it's. I'm pretty sure it was the same person. And she was almost like trying to deter the idea, like, well, it doesn't look anything like it did in the show. That was a long time ago. And, I mean, she couldn't be more wrong. It's like, I don't know why you are trying to push a sale away. A sale is a sale. It doesn't matter if I want to stay in that room or for another room. I'm wanting to book your motel. And, but it was like a nuisance to her. She would not guarantee it. She said to call closer to the time and see if it's available. And long story, it was. We got to stay there. She increased the rate by $10 just because we made the request, which was fine. We were ready, and that was we got to we had fun with the room, and we took a picture of the key with the 211 on there, and there it is. There's all our experience there with the pictures and whatnot. But yeah.
One thing too that I wanted to add, this will not be the first time that this idea gets mentioned, probably throughout this series of videos, but this is a perfect example. You hear about this kind of stuff a lot, and people who do the things that we do, visiting filming locations, traveling around and checking that stuff out, we encounter this in a roundabout way. We kind of encountered it today, sort of, but that's an unrelated thing. But this is an example of, well, you can't help but ask the question, like, why wouldn't you want to capitalize on this opportunity that you have? Now, I just described the Crossroads Motel as sort of, exactly like it looks in the show. Now, if you charged a decent rate and promoted and embraced, I guess is a better word, embraced the fact that people want to come see it, people want to come stay there, capitalize on the opportunity. That could be, I mean, who knows? That could be one of the most popular hotels in all of Albuquerque if they just did it properly.
With that, I mean, I'm still amazed about to this day how that place is still running. I hear it's because it's right near the airport, and people who are coming and going and just need a place to lay their head and for not much at all. It's a convenience thing. It's right off the highway. And yeah, I mean, other than that, it blows my mind how that place is still running. But in my other than its Breaking Bad fame and Better Call Saul fame, it has like a lot of Albuquerque's other I say iconic, but historical places that didn't make it. I'd like Crossroads to succeed for its history, regardless. It's like Route 66 stuff. Yeah, so like the Deanza Motel, which has now been completely modernized. You kept the sign, Route 66, the Zia Lodge, the sign, only the signs there. I think Crossroads, it fits in with those. And if it doesn't make it, hopefully its building turns into something else that works, but the sign remains. But anyway, that's on a whole nother tangent. Moving on from the Crossroads, we're definitely going to see a lot more of the Crossroads. But that was our one and only experience. That's all we needed from the Crossroads Motel. We did get photos outside posing where Wendy posed. We'll show you those here. I do remember the lady wanted to charge another $5 for us to get photos just in the lot and whatnot. Just craziness. So talking about the introducing new arcs here, we are getting a little bit. We are getting an introduction to another character development here that they decided to do with Marie. We get the introduction of Marie's kleptomaniasm, mania. We get the introduction of Marie's kleptomania, and that is at a shoe store. And in this scene, we get two locations. We get one where with her in the shoe store, and then she's on the phone. She calls her husband, Hank. He's working, and we get his perspective where he's at, and that's another location. So a little fun fact, and most would not know this, the shoe store that Marie's at is the exact same location, the exact same room, everything as the beginning opening of this episode of the flashback scene with Walt and Gretchen. It is the Albuquerque Balloon Museum, same, I call it room, but the floor, it's the open floor. They dressed it with curtains. They dressed it with shoes. They put a sign outside. They had customers going in and out the door, but all of that door just leads to a balcony. If you look closely through those thin curtains, you can actually see the Sandias in the background. You can see them. You can see the mountains. They're not on floor level. They're above. I'll show you a picture of the exterior of the Balloon Museum, and you could see where the window, where that would have been filmed, and of course, my inside shots. But yeah, same location. And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" When I found that out, I was surprised myself. But then I looked closely, and I could tell it's the same place. It's just dressed. Then when she's on the phone with Hank, we cut to his location, and that's actually, speaking of the crossroads, is about a 3-minute walk from the crossroads in central Albuquerque, and it's like just this area that is kind of run down. The buildings are boarded up, and even the building directly behind Hank and I'll just say the illegals that he's arresting, that is no more when we went there, and it's just depicted as this area where he's busting illegal aliens, and he's like, sit down, and she's like, Jesus, Hank, literally walking distance from the crossroads. And yeah, I mean, we got two locations right there. That building is no more behind them, and even the one in front might not even be there anymore.
To me, that one seemed like a quick one. It wasn't a place that we spent a lot of time. I do remember, though, that the buildings, there were a couple of buildings, and as he said, they were kind of boarded up, and they're just in like deteriorating. All the stone work and concrete and all that was all cracked and broken and falling apart. It's almost like that whole neighborhood was kind of condemned or something. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that whole area, that whole block was leveled and they took all those buildings down. And I can't remember the neighboring house, but that's pretty much all I remember about it. I feel like we had other things to get to. This was also back when we were go, go, go. We have these massive lists, and it was like we just get up at dawn and hit the road, and we would go until dusk and use every ounce of daylight that we had to cram as many locations in as we possibly could. And some of them that didn't necessarily mean a whole lot to us, or they don't have a whole lot of significance, but we, as completionists, we felt like we had to be there. This felt like one of those to me. So that's pretty much my only memory of it.
Yeah, it was a quick one. I do remember, and it was just I think it was described as just this area that was going to be completely demolished and redeveloped, if I remember correctly. So that might have already happened because it's been a good handful of years. But moving on, I mean, that covers pretty much everything. We have one more location And this is before we get to the ending of the episode. Well, yeah, toward the ending where Walt has to. Well, he has a chance to fulfill his part of the coin flip. Also, Skylar does find out he's been lying because she finds out he quit the car wash 2 weeks ago. He's got a lot going on with at home too, but with all that, we find Walt. He pulls over at an overpass, and I always find that as a very iconic or memorable location for Breaking Bad in season one, because Walt is he's been dealt quite the hand, and he doesn't know. He's a very reserved man when it comes to that, and he's just reflecting. And he pulls his Aztec over on an overpass, which is the real life overpass is I-25 in Bobby Foster. We've talked about Bobby Foster, and a lot's been filmed there. But that overpass before you enter Bobby Foster, right there, is where he pulls over, and you can actually pull over there safely without blocking any traffic in real life. There's quite a bit of the shoulder, and we've done that. We've done that ourselves with the rental, and we were able to pretty much line that shot up just like that. And we got to that later on. It wasn't one of the first locations that we got to. You believe it or not, I think it was like trip number 3 or 4. It was just one of those that we probably had on a list, but it was not a priority. And finally, we got down to, well, we got all the big fun ones now. Let's start checking off some of the ones that we need to get that are quick, and we finally did it. So if I remember correctly, based on the shirt that I'm wearing, I always can remember the trip based on the shirt that I'm in the picture. This was 2017, and yeah, that's an iconic one. But that's the end of the locations for that episode. I'll let Billy say something about that, and then we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, I felt the same about that one. It's just there's something about that image. That's what really struck me about it. It's actually kind of symbolic in a way. I mean, you come over that. I mean, it's an overpass, and this to me was one of those images that gave off that sort of desolate and like lonely feeling. That the way that it was framed. And it was just kind of symbolic of the way that Walt would pull up, stop, and he had to like compose himself. I mean, he was reflecting on what just happened with Crazy 8, but also I'm assuming trying to mentally prepare to get back home and break the news to Skylar. Which is what ends our episode. But the thing that I wanted to mention about that location is it was symbolic to me in the sense that all those cars going by both ways underneath of him just made me feel like Walt's world had stopped, really. Like he's just in this funk, and he's just been hit with the worst news anybody could ever have. He just took a life. He hasn't told anybody this yet. And so it's like he just needs a minute to decompress. And there's just something about that shot contrast with the way the cars are moving underneath him, as if the world is still turning and things are still happening. Everybody's out there getting on with their lives and doing their thing. And there he is, just in limbo, like a purgatory in a sense. But yeah, I loved that location. There's something about it. I was pretty excited to get that one. Again, it's not one that takes or needs a lot of time. It's one shot, but it was one that we definitely had to have.
The score is playing there, right?
Yeah, there's some score, and Yeah, and you feel that too. You feel the score works really, really well with the imagery.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I remember that in a lot of the series, the pairing of Dave Porter's score and the imagery itself is what imprints. So, well, for me, a lot of these moments are the music helps with, and this is just a shot of Walt sitting in his Aztec on an overpass, but the music, Dave Porter's score, just really kind of helps put that in your mind, and it ends up being one of the most memorable images from season one, in my opinion. That's about it for episode 3. We wanted to try to get this one. It might be a shorter one, I'm sure, but we got 62 of these to do, so we're gonna have some short ones. We're gonna have some long ones, and we wanted to try to do this one while we were in the same room, because this will probably be, I'm pretty sure this will probably be the only opportunity that we're going to have to do this, and we figured it'd be special to do it in the same room here in Lexington. But we go home tomorrow, and we will. How does this? Let's see how this looks. We're pointing it at each other.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it mixes it up. It mixes it up a little bit. We got it's not just our cameras from our different homes. We're in the same room, so
Where do these come from? We'll get to that later.
no, I'm here, but I'm sure you can hear me on his.
Yeah, he's
on his
laughing.
hand. Yeah. Nice little reference there.
I did want to say that the way that episode ends, after Walt sitting on the overpass, he does go home, walks through the front door, and he goes into the bedroom to find Skylar. She's sitting back too on the bed, and she just kind of turns around and looks at him, and he says, "I have to tell you something."
That's right. Yeah.
And that's how they end that episode.
There you go. I'm glad you got that, because I already forgot.
And I remember that was one of just many, 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 pretty much every episode had that. It wasn't necessarily some big grand cliffhanger, but it was a earned cliffhanger, and it was an important cliffhanger. And this was certainly one that I was like, I remember thinking at the time, oh my God, what? And that's what they want you to think. They want you to think, what's he going to say? Is he going to tell her that he just killed someone? Or is he going to tell her that he has cancer? So the very definition of cliffhanger. But anyway, that's it for me. If you can't tell, I think I may have developed a cold on this excursion that we had here in Kentucky. So that's the end of this episode, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up, because I already kind of forgot that cliffhanger. That is an earned cliffhanger, and it's kind of like Walt's been caught in a lie, so he's like, okay, well, shit, this is, now I have to tell her, because it's going to justify why I'm lying. Like, I'm going through a lot. This will help me get out of this predicament. I mean, maybe you don't see it that way, but I kind of saw it that way. And so, yeah, we all know what he does tell her, and this is going to lead us into episode 4, appropriately titled Cancer Man. And I think we have about 2 episodes that kind of focus on his cancer, and it's a little heavy. We got to focus on the real life part of the series. The next couple episodes, I think, are going to be more Walt focused, but that's going to be it for episode 3 in the Bags in the River. We're signing out from Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky. I think Billy has one more thing to say. Go ahead.
It's important to add, with everything that he just said, Walt was caught in a lie.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason that he decided that he reached a point. But I agree with you. That's
Okay.
what I'm saying. That's the only reason that he decided he was going to, he had to.
Yeah.
And he knew that he would get sympathy for that. I mean,
Who wouldn't?
obviously, who wouldn't? But it just so happens to work for him and be convenient. And he knows that's the only way that's going to happen. So he's got to do it. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, and with that, I mean, we start to finally see. I'm using the word selfish because it's the first one that comes to mind, but we start to see the true colors of the Walter White character start to come out. Where this is all about him. Well, we already know how this ends. So yes, this is the start of like, oh shit, I just got caught in a lie. How do I reel it back a little bit? Oh, okay. Well, now I'll tell my wife.
But you don't know. That's the thing. You first time viewing, you don't. First time viewing. Well, that's weird. First time viewing, you don't know that that's how it is.
No, right.
We only know because obviously we're all fans. We've seen it. We know how it plays out.
Yeah, and we assume that everybody watching this, you've seen this. I hope that you've seen this 2 or 3 times. I mean, the show ended 10 years ago. So if you're watching this podcast, like you've seen the show. This is a deep cut dive focusing on our personal experience with the show and going to these locations. So yeah, we know everybody watching this knows what happens. And so you're right. You don't know first viewing, but knowing now who Walter White is,
You can see it.
you can see it.
It's always there.
It was always there. And I think, yeah, I mean, like once he found what he was good at. Anyway, it's kind of crazy how deep this show can really get as far as the layers, the onion layers, if you will. But
Well, what we really could do is we could just let the cameras roll and talk for hours and hours and hours all night long. We've done that before too. So if you guys want to be around for that, let us know.
and that's why this is going to be a 62 episode conversation, but with our spin on it. And hopefully you're enjoying our spin on it, which is our personal experience with how the show changed our lives and just, I guess, brought us together as friends and to Albuquerque numerous amount of times. And hopefully you enjoyed our adventures there and seeing the locations from when we had our multiple visits. But
Well, this particular episode, we didn't have a lot of, there wasn't a lot of locations, and they certainly weren't big ones for us in the sense that, I mean, Crossroads was a big one because we did get to stay in the room. But
right.
I'm just saying that, trust me, the stories at some of the locations will get much more interesting.
Yeah. That's it. That's all we got. So we're going to say goodnight. I have an early morning. So does he, because he's got to bring me to the airport. And next time we see you, we will be at our back to 2,000 miles away. We'll be discussing number 4, Cancer Man. I don't have anything else to say. So hope you enjoyed. We'll talk to you all on the next one.